breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks. Audio streaming of today's council meeting starts at 1 p.m. local time. Streaming is paused during breaks.
You ready? Good afternoon and a warm welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you for being here and welcome to those that are listening online. Thank you for joining in as well. A reminder of those in the room or close by that you could have your mobiles turned off as it does interfere with our recording. Please be seated. Thank you. We do have a number of apologies. The Deputy Mayor is an apology. Councillor Finlay is no longer an apology. She's no longer a councillor, unfortunately. So that's happened from the declaration of the polls. Councillor Soward is an apology and Councillor Walker is an apology. So part of acknowledgements, I just want to take this opportunity to acknowledge ex-councillor, ex-mayor Finlay for the work that she's done for our city, for the support she's been to us as a council and for your insight and the way that you think through issues and challenge us at times, and it's been great. I've learned a lot from that, so I really appreciate your contribution to council and to what you have done. And so I'd like to take this opportunity to publicly thank you and to appreciate that, even though I know you're no longer a council. We wish you very well in your new role, and as a council we look forward to working together with yourself and your team into the near future. But now I'd like to give you a chance to say some words if you'd like to.
Thank you.
The microphone might be good.
Excuse my back. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words today. today is a little emotional, and I always expected that it would be, but I didn't realise it would be so. As of a phone call last night at around 5 o'clock, I was formally advised that I am no longer a councillor. I thought I had 30 days to wrap up my my work and bring things to an end, but as of the declaration of the polls last week on Friday, officially now I am no longer a councillor. But I did want to take this opportunity to say some thank yous and reflect a little on the past few years. And as I stand here in the doorway looking out through these 3 windows, most of my adult life, my contemplations about this city, about our council and about our future have been framed as I've been thinking through these windows. You know, looking at the library is always significant, an asset and a locker of information and knowledge. I've always looked at that building and it's helped me to stay focused on what's the information that we're making our decisions on. And you look out through the middle window and see the beautiful church formation and are always reminded about the history and the heritage of Launceston and how important that is, particularly when we would sit as a planning authority, and that grounds you in the importance and the priority of that. And then the other window, you look out and it's the government building, and it's sort of like, what might be? What are our relationships? How do we work in a team for not only this city but for this region? And so, you know, when I was sitting here at the last meeting, I looked through each of these windows like I have for, you know, I've had a short break when I had kids, but for 21 years, this has been my home and it's been my family. And like most homes and families, it's been chaotic and it's been amazing, and I've grown a lot and I've learned a lot. And I reflect back on my initial years as an apprenticeship of fire. It's also been a fiery home. There's been a lot of moments around this table where you learn, you break, you grow, you contribute, you stay quiet, and you execute with discipline the things that you really want to achieve for your community. And I remember, those first moments under the Mayor of John Lees with Premier Jim Bacon. They were years that I think as a state and as a city we should be really proud on and reflect on positively, but we were working through the redevelopment of York Park, we were working through the transition to Inverest with the Museum and Art Gallery, we were working through it being a university city 21 years ago. And now you look at the agenda and where there's a recommendation to consider the UNESCO Declaration of the City of Gastronomy. You know, we are always a city, whether it's 21 years ago or now, doing great things, and it's been beautiful to be a part of that. Personally, local government has taught me a lot about everything to do with the community, whether it be in business, whether it be in family, whether it be, I love local government and all that it does. And I did want to use this opportunity today, if anyone's listening or if there's anyone out there, or we can share this with anyone, that in 12 months' time there is an election for local government. Anyone that's keen to be at this table, it is the best place to be. It's incredible. You can contribute so much, but you've got to start now. 12 months isn't long, and if there's anything that my last 21 years has taught me, that it's about perpetually being out there and engaged and, put your hand up and have a go. So I wanted to say that, but I also wanted to say that from Launceston in Tasmania, on this island at the bottom of this country, at the bottom of the world, you can use this place in local government to go anywhere and do anything. And I've been all across Australia as an invited speaker on local government. I've engaged with the Local Government Association of Tasmania, and I've engaged with the Australian Local Government Association. I was invited internationally to speak at the CHOGM equivalent of local government, the Commonwealth Local Government Heads of Local Government, to speak, and had the opportunity to represent Launceston and the balance of the world in China to our sister city there and speak on behalf of all of their international relations. So the thing that local government has taught me is this is where we connect with everybody, but it's also in the thing that Launceston has taught me is this is a place that you can go anywhere and you can do anything. So for today, I've loved every minute of it. It's a massive milestone in my life today to say goodbye. But it won't be goodbye, because one of the things that we're good at as well is working in partnership, and I reckon that between us, whether that's government, opposition, whatever it is, all of the things that we can continue to do, I would love to be back regularly to continue to ensure that we get the best outcome possible for Launceston and for this region. So thanks for the opportunity to my supporters, to the community, the elected members, but I think part of the essential team here is the staff. You know, the number changes all the time, but it's about, give or take, 50 or so, 500 people here as a team. To have worked with a number of elected members to work with the staff from here, we've got a good thing going on, and that's pretty special as well. So to thank you for everybody, for everything. I wish you all well, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work together into the future. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Once again, thanks for your contribution to our city at this far, and we know it's going to continue into the future, so look forward to ongoing relationship. Thank you very much. So, declaration of interest. Any declaration of interest from councillors? Confirmation of minutes. The minutes held on the 5th of May. Somebody happy to move those minutes? Councillor Dakey moved. Councillor Cox seconded. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is all councillors present. That is carried. There's no deputations and no petitions. We do have 2 community reports today. First of all, Ms Tina Walker from the Health Promotion Consultant.
Hi. Oh, over here. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and present something very exciting in Launceston, which is happening now, called the Live Well, Live Long program. Which is an amazing partnership between Launceston City Council and CODA, Council of the Ageing. The program came about a few years ago through a research project with the Tasmanian Health Service. What we did was interview a lot of older people and a lot of services, and people in the community were saying that they didn't know what services were out there, they didn't know how to access them. And there was service providers and staff saying, we've got these programs, but sometimes they're not connected. As part of that, we looked at opportunities to develop and run programs in Launceston to meet those needs. A program was identified in Hobart called Live Well, Live Long, and the city councils in Clarence were the ones that actually began that process, which was really good. They gave us the opportunity to bring that up here, and we applied for a grant through City of Launceston and was successful. And as part of that, we were able to identify our target group and our need here. We were also able to do some marketing and things as well. So we're very appreciative, and without that grant, we wouldn't have got off the ground. So we've actually done one complete program, and we're halfway through the second. But what that program has shown has been some amazing stories that have come out of there. So some stories of hope, some stories where people have said that they didn't know they could access particular services. People would say, I just thought that was a part of ageing. I didn't know that I could do something about that. And there are things that we can do about that. We can age gracefully, but we can also age with the help of services and supports. The results of this program have been like nothing I've ever seen before. And it continues to bring me such joy to talk about some of the stories. But it's about people avoiding going to hospital. It's about people avoiding going into care and nursing homes. It's about keeping people independent and living at home as long as possible. So the program's 10 weeks, and we have a range of speakers, different health professionals that come along and actually talk about that, everything from podiatrists to physiotherapists to continence services to Australian Hearing, all of those kind of services that impact health and finance, health and wellbeing. And as part of that, it's not just information, it's about looking at what we can do about that. So it's about actioning those things. It's about learning strategies to look after your own health and wellbeing. It's just had incredible results, and we are just moving forward and looking at where to from here with that. We had a Reconnect day for the first program on Tuesday, so we invited everybody back 6 weeks after the program, and we will continue to evaluate that. The outcomes are still there, so hopefully in 6 months, 12 months, people are still doing what they said they were going to do. And if that's the case, we're going to have a healthier community. We'll keep people out of hospital. We'll keep people out of those. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that update. It's a pleasure, and all the best in the role as you continue the work. Thank you.
Thanks.
And then we have Ms Rosalind Ives and Gabriella Purcell.
Good afternoon, Mayor Van Zetten and councillors. My name is Gabrielle Purcell and I am from Launceston College. Amnesty International is the largest human rights organisation in the world. A non-profit, non-governmental organisation, Amnesty campaigns globally in countries currently undergoing war and conflict or where human rights are ignored. The work conducted by Amnesty helps to maintain and apply the Universal Declaration of Human Rights so as to help individuals who are in danger, promote access to education, decent housing and healthcare for all people, investigate human rights abuses and take actions to stop them. During Amnesty International's presence in Tasmania, local campaigns have included movements to protect the community's rights to protest, events to welcome, celebrate and protect our refugee communities, spreading awareness of the critical situation of the Uyghur ethnic group in China, and a resolute campaign to raise the Aboriginal flag above this town hall to recognise, commemorate and respect the Lutruwita people as the traditional owners of this land. Our Launceston College Amnesty Group is a registered collective of students working with the established Amnesty Group here in Tasmania. We are a group of young people hoping to capitalise on the technological world in which we have been raised to stay informed on local, national and global threats to human rights. These include concerning issues such as the age of criminality of just 10 years and how it disadvantages our First Nations youth, the state of gender inequality in the Federal Parliament, and of course the violent atrocities currently faced by Palestinian people in Gaza. We aim to connect with the wider school community, raising awareness of these movements and also organising events to help support the wellbeing of our students and staff. These events include our current gratitude campaign, which intends to unify the school community and provide light and warmth in a world full of potential dark. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Ros Ives. Amnesty is 60. It began with Peter Benenson, an English lawyer, and his freedom of speech winning campaign against the arrest and imprisonment in Portugal of 2 young people who were having a meal in a pub. They were arrested for subversion, for uttering one word, meaning freedom. At Harvest Market on Saturday, the 29th of May, the 60th birthday of Amnesty will be marked with sharing of birthday cake, while inviting the community to pledge actions to address human rights abuses affecting lives locally and globally. Amnesty has had a continuous presence in Launceston since 2012. And what can City of Launceston Council do to help us achieve our aims? Through Amnesty's widespread regional network, we want to partner with City of Launceston, gaining council collective support to uplift human values and target justice and discrimination in our community. Local government campaigns in Australia are building more inclusive and happier communities. We invite your commitment to this. Thank you. And may I present you the ticket?
Oh, you certainly may.
I'd like you to join us and share some birthday cake at Harvest Market on the 29th.
Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for that update. It's really good, and thank you for the work that you do in our community. We now move on to public question time. We've got the ones on notice, questions on notice there with the answers. Then we go to public questions without notice. Any questions without notice today?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Linda Collier. I have question number 1 for the Council. Do Council realise the considerable amount of emotional and mental distress the Kai family have and are still suffering due to the planning amendment they will soon be debating? Is Council aware they are dealing with real people here, 5 people in fact, who should have been given a sizable compensation package by Council and the JAC group to atone for the pain, suffering and financial loss they have experienced in respect to their original appeal?
Thank you.
That's one question.
Yep.
Question number 2, please. Thank you. If Launceston City Council really wants to support and encourage small business owners such as the Kai family, should they not be treated significantly better than what they have been here? Thank you. Number 3 question. Thank you. Has Launceston City Council been in collusion with the JAC group in respect of the drafting of this specific action plan? And can they assure the community that no inducement of any kind has been received by elected representatives or council staff to facilitate this planning amendment? Ratepayers and community are very concerned and cynical in regard to this whole process. Thank you very much.
Can I say to that last question, definitely not, from myself and from all the councillors around the room. Can I also answer the other questions just by stating that we will be discussing this very shortly, and the councillors have heard your questions and will be able to answer any of that in their own speeches as they wish to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jim Collier and I live in Beach Road, Lagana. And I have 3 questions relating to the Amendment 66, the specific area plan. Given Susie Kai and her family, in good faith and having belief and confidence in the Tasmanian legal process, spent approximately $63,000, most of which was borrowed, lodging an appeal with the Resource Management and Planning Appeal Tribunal against the original Gorge Hotel proposal, an appeal which proved justified as the tribunal upheld that appeal and overturned Launceston City Council's approval for the project. Given the Kai family also suffered a profit loss through having to close their restaurant on 3 occasions to attend the appeal hearing in Hobart, will Launceston City Council make an ex gratia payment to the Kai family to compensate them for their original costs in mounting that appeal, especially as Council now appear to be doing their utmost to thwart the Tribunal's decision, and the Kai family may now, if this SAP is adopted, be forced into lodging yet another appeal, all because the JAC group and Council refused to accept the Tribunal ruling from the initial appeal?
Well, the answer to that would be no, but thank you.
I won't acknowledge that. My next question is this specific area plan a typical case of a spoilt child not liking the umpire's decision, so let's get the rules changed, or maybe a case of bully boy tactics with the rich and powerful ganging up on the weak and less well off to get what they want?
No.
Thank you. My third and final question, I suspect it will get the same response, but at this council table is at least one person with first-hand knowledge of just how the rich and powerful can attempt to exert their influence to achieve their own ends. And there are many other examples in Tasmanian history, such as with the Guns pulp mill saga. So this sort of thing can and does happen. So, while keeping that in mind, is Launceston City Council working hard hand in glove with developers to facilitate a hotel development in Launceston, which has already been rejected by the Resource Planning and Management Appeal Tribunal, which concluded clearly and unequivocally in respect to the original Gorge Hotel proposal, the building height is not compatible with the streetscape and the character of the surrounding area, and that has not changed?
Thank you. The answer is no from myself. I can't speak from the other councillors, but I'm sure during the debate they'll have their say on their matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions? No other questions? So then, under the provisions of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act, Council acts as a planning authority in regards to the items included in agenda item number 9, which is Planning Authority. We do have some speakers for this item. Mrs. Kai.
Hello. Mayor and Aldermen, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I urge you to go against the officer's recommendation and reject the proposed planning scheme amendment. You are well aware that I oppose this development, and instead of appealing to you about the impact it will have on my family, home and business, in your role as a planning authority, I urge you to consider the planning merits of the proposal. Fully assessing these merits is a job for the Planning Commission, but when a proposed amendment is so lacking in merit as this one, it should not be initiated, and the TPC's time and resources should not be wasted on it. The fact that the proposed building envelope neatly matches the shape of the proposed development reviews the lack of strategic planning justification behind this amendment. An SAP is supposed to apply to an area to either promote or defend a unique character of that area. The proponent has failed to explain what unique character justifies an SAP for their proposed development site. It appears that the only thing unique about the site is that it is where they want to place their development. They claim the SAP is proposed to resolve an inconsistency in the tribunal's interpretation of performance criteria in clause 15.4.1 of the planning scheme. Instead of resolving the issue, they are proposing a new acceptable solution that does away with the performance criteria entirely. They have failed to address the importance of clause 15.4.1 in maintaining the streetscape and character of the area. They have also failed to explain why the SAP should apply to their site but not the remainder of the mixed-use zone. Sitting as a planning authority, I hope the Council can see that this proposed amendment does not just lack the merits to be approved by the TPC, but it fails to even meet the threshold for Council to put it forward. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well on your time. Appreciate that. Thank you. Ms. Chloe Lynn.
Thank you, Mayor Van Zetten and councillors. I will address the matter from a planning perspective today, and Dean Cocker and Joe will talk more broadly on the impacts of this amendment to development in the city. As you're aware, the proposed amendment introduces a specific area plan which provides for a permitted building envelope that is taller than is permitted under the current urban mixed zone provisions, but only if the use is for visitor accommodation and associated ancillary uses. The amendment does not include an application for development, and if the amendment is approved, a separate DA will need to be lodged, which will be discretionary on areas other than height. Thus, the public will be afforded two opportunities for input. Initiation of this amendment today is the first in a series of steps to facilitate development of the Gorge Hotel, a development that will bring economic investment into the city, create employment opportunities and insist in transitioning the area between the CBD and the Cataract Gorge into a tourism precinct and improve the overall quality of built form in the area. Importantly, it is reiterated that in the decision of the Gorge Hotel DA, the Tribunal found there were no unreasonable amenity impacts to the surrounding residential apartments, including the one above the Golden Brumby restaurant. Given the building envelope permitted by the SAP is the same as that considered under that decision, Council can be comfortable that approval of this amendment will not unreasonably impact any of the surrounding land users and their amenity. The Tribunal's interpretation of what must constitute surrounding area in the Gorge Hotel case was significantly narrower, i.e. 100 metres, to that it considered in the Fragrance Hotel case, which was up to 900 metres. The Fragrance Hotel was ultimately approved. It's clear that there's very subjective interpretation as to what the surrounding area and compatibility with streetscape and surrounding area is, and the amendment simply seeks to provide certainty to the developers moving forward. The proposed amendment has demonstrated to meet all relevant strategic requirements under the Act. I implore the councillors... Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Your time is up. Mr. Joseph Cromie.
The Joe Cromie from Charles Strix JRC Company here. That I like to saying that all the time come here and looking for hotel, tourism and food and wine here. I employ a lot of people now, around 300 people now, and when I will be building the Shadow Hotel, will be 600 people. That will be tourism is a very important part of Tasmania. That's the tourism's future for Tasmania. And I'm sure Tasmania people will be proud of that hotel, and proud of the council will be proud of that, and Mr. will be proud of that here. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dean Cocker.
Dean Cocker, Managing Director of the JAC Group, 9 Spencer Street, Launceston. Mayor and councillors, you approved the Gorge Hotel 10-1 almost 2 years ago now, and you were right the first time. The standard for overshadowing in a general residential zone is 3 hours midwinter, and the tribunal found that the neighbour gets 3.7 to 4 hours in a more intensive zone midwinter. So overshadowing is not a reason to refuse this application. The tribunal in the Gorge Hotel case initially defined the surrounding area, which is not defined in the scheme, as being limited to 100 metres. Now, the tribunal refused the Gorge Hotel, saying it wasn't compatible with the surrounding area simply because there wasn't another tall building within 100 metres. Now, to us, that did not make sense because all of the tall buildings in Launceston are more than 100 metres apart. And so, sure enough, 1 year later, in the Fragrance GP Hotel decision, the tribunal, made up of a different panel of members, came to a different conclusion. They changed the mind of the tribunal, expressly rejecting 100 metres as the limit of the surrounding area. They preferred the evidence of counsel, which included the Silo Hotel, which is over 900 metres away. Now, the silos are visible 900 metres from the Gorge Hotel site, and the Myer building is only 600 metres away. So you were right the first time. There's no unreasonable overshadowing, and the project is compatible with the broader surrounding area of the city where there are already similar height buildings. It'll employ, this Gorge Hotel, 300 people full-time during 2 years of construction and 280 people direct and indirect ongoing after it's built. Over 90% of comments on today's Examiner website are in support. We believe the community does support this project. So I hope Council sends a strong message to the Planning Commission that the project is supported by Council and the community you represent. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jim Collier, perhaps can you put the top back on? Sorry, there's no...
No, he doesn't want to speak.
No further speakers?
No further speakers.
Oh, thank you. Just checking, there's no further speakers. Thank you. So now we move on to item 9.1, and first of all, General Manager Leanne wishes to make a small correction.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wish to bring councillors' attention to a minor change to recommendation 1, and that is with respect to the second property, the address of the second property identified. The address should read 125 to 133 Patterson Street, and that's reflected on the screen today.
So that's what will be included in the motion. Somebody happy to move a motion? Move Councillor Mackenzie as is. Seconder Councillor Spencer. Councillor Mackenzie, you wish to speak to it?
Just firstly, before I do, Mayor, could I just ask a question? Could the officers advise what the process is from here in the event, that we approve today's SAP and in the event that we don't?
Thank you. General Manager.
Thanks, Mayor. If the amendment is initiated, then it will be advertised for 28 days. A report will then come back to Council where any representations can be considered. Council will then send a report to the TPC, the Tasmanian Planning Commission, with its views. The Tasmanian Planning Commission will then consider the amendment and hold a public hearing if necessary. It will then determine the amendment. This should take about 3 to 4 months. And should the TPC approve the amendment, a DA will be able to be lodged and assessed by council using the new SAP provisions.
And the alternative is if we vote no, it won't go any further. That'll be it.
Thank you. I thought I'd just have that for completion.
Yep,
Thanks very much, Mayor. Look, I stand to support the recommendation made by officers. I'd start firstly by stating thank you to the officers for the amazing amount of work that was put into the report that we've received on which to make our decision today, including the renderings, the 3D renderings that we got. I think we had up to 28 site views of it, and to be honest, if anything, it makes it look worse because it's blocked out and therefore you don't get no visual through it. But I think it gave us a really good opportunity, and the public a really good opportunity, to see what the profile of the building would look like in the event that it was built in that area and the impact that it might have on the surrounds. We stood here a number of months ago and voted 10-1 in favour of the development of the hotel based on the existing area plan that's there. And I've seen nothing today that's changed my view in regards to why I voted in favour that day than today. If I had any concerns, they were back then about the overshadowing aspects on Ms Kai's building, and clearly the tribunal actually didn't see in favour of that. Its size and situation didn't concern me at that point in time. I think Launceston over many years has turned its back to the river. This is a great opportunity to actually turn back and face our wonderful river, the Canamalooka. And so I'm really pleased to see this because I think it'll actually add amenity. I don't see the siting of a service station and a car park as something that actually adds great amenity to the area as it stands today. And I think a development of some scale on this development, particularly as it's low-lying, actually will sit well into the landscape. I think clearly by looking at the 3D renderings, yes, there are some places, yes, you will see the building. It is a bit of a statement hotel in the way that it's designed. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not, in my view. Not everything has to be small and petite. There are lots of views around Launceston where you can see taller buildings, and I guess the Silos Hotel is one in a situation where it stands way out on its own. Arguably it was already there, but the reality of it is I believe it actually makes a statement on the landscape and something quite attractive and a key point for Launceston to look at. I do take umbrage to the level of vitriol that's thrown at us by speakers today. We sit here as councillors who have been elected to do a role and to look and assessing things on the merits of the cases that are in front of us. We understand that sometimes there are people who don't like the outcomes that we vote on, but we sit and listen to the people who actually make references to why they think something should or shouldn't be, and then we have to assess it in the strength of the way that we look at things. We get great guidance from our planning officers when it comes to planning matters. We're not experts in planning, we get great guidance. But I've been doing this for over 10 years now and the guidance has been pretty good. We haven't always agreed, but 99% of the time we agree because they're professional people in their field. And to suggest that there's any sort of level of corruption to the big end of town is a disgraceful comment for anybody to make, I believe. I feel very strongly about the way that our officers go about what they do, the way that my co-councillors go about making the decisions that we make. We spend a lot of time and effort reading and studying the information that's put in front of us before we come up with a decision. The reason it's here is because it's difficult, and the reason it's here is because not everybody is agreeing with what we're trying to do. Therefore, it's up to our judgment to make a decision about whether we think this is the right thing for Launceston based on the parameters of the acts that we're asked to make our decisions on. As I said a number of months ago, I was comfortable in regards to the previous scheme before this amendment was put forward that this was a suitable development for the site that was in place. Today, I see no reason not to continue to support that, and if we have to do that through a special area plan, then I'm happy to do so.
Thank you. Councillor Spencer.
Thanks, Mayor. I went to the football Saturday and my decision was made there where I spoke to people from Melbourne that couldn't get accommodation in Launceston over the weekend. Only with 9,000 people at the football, there was no accommodation in Launceston. I had a couple of beers at the Park Hotel later, and there was people from Smithton told me the same thing. They were driving back that night if they couldn't get accommodation in Launceston. I was very surprised. I feel sorry for the lady next door, but there's nothing there about the sunlight. She's going to get enough sunlight, 3.5 hours of sun in the winter. And I think this project will be great for Launceston. 300 trading jobs over a matter of a couple of years. We cannot say no to that. 5-star motel, magnificent, not many in Launceston, and we definitely need one. The second point, the Fragrance Hotel was approved. We cannot say no to this one. The Fragrance got approved, and I think this one should too. So I will be voting in favour of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an opportunity for all of us around the table today to make a genuine strategic decision about the future of our city. This is not a development application. This is a special area plan. Planning scheme amendment. Because it will provide for the developer certainty of a building envelope only to enable construction of a premium 5-star hotel. There isn't a DA in front of us at the moment. It just provides the height, the width, what he needs to build what will become an icon of this city, I believe. 150 rooms is the minimum standard for an international 5-star hotel. During the recent COVID outbreak, those hotels who did well with visitors from intrastate, from Hobart and the Northwest Coast, were generally the new hotels, the Silos, the Seaballs. It wasn't the older hotels, and even the Grand Chancellor struggled during this time because it's now 30 years old. You may remember it was opened in 1989 when the pilot strike occurred. So when you look at that, we need to have a renewal of new hotel development in our city, for our city's tourism. Some of those older hotels built in the 1960s and 70s are simply not meeting the standards of people who want to come here. So we have to look at what the city is going to do. I do understand that the Planning Appeals Tribunal has disallowed the previous Gorge Hotel, not on overshadowing, noise or traffic concerns, as you might expect, but in fact it's simply because there was no other taller buildings within 100 metres. And if they had used the same concerns or the same standard of 900 metres that they used for the Fragrance Group, then those clearly it would have there would have been taller buildings within it. However, I believe that this is a time of opportunity for us to look at what the Margaret Street area is and see a renaissance in this as an area of what we as a city want, where inner city living will become the norm, where people will be able to walk into the CBD. Already we are seeing new apartments being built in Margaret Street, down outside the old Baptist Church. Also the Jack apartments are being built also in Margaret Street, down on the old Jack Yard as well. So those things are starting to happen, and these will not be cheap apartments. These will be $1 million plus. So that's the type of redevelopment that we are going to see along this part of the city. And I think it's very important that we make this decision today to enable a big enough building envelope to enable a hotel, a premium 5-star hotel that all of Launceston can be proud of, to then be developed on that site. The fact that it's going to be developed by a local developer, employing locals in construction, but also long-term, is also to be applauded. I think it's something that's really important. If you look around the city at things that the Jack Group have developed with the old Launceston General Hospital and many other redevelopments, they have done a wonderful job when given the opportunity. And I see no reason why this hotel won't stand on its own. So with that, 2 years ago, on the 13th of June, we approved this hotel, and I'd like to see that we would approve it once again.
Thank you. Councillor Dawkins.
Thank you, Mayor. As I've communicated with any community member who's got in touch with me in the last week or so, I support the furthering of this process. I think if we'd perhaps started with this process rather than bringing the development application to the table in the first instance, we might be a bit further along, and we might have actually been able to avoid some of the angst and anxiety in the community. I feel for Miss Kai, I feel for her family. I understand this is a protracted process that they're going through. They feel very unsettled in their business and in their home. But I do take umbrage, as Councillor Mackenzie had indicated, at the level of vitriol. It's a really difficult job when you stand here and people can accuse you of corruption, but you've got really no opportunity to be able to address that other than perhaps show them your bank account, which clearly no one's going to do. And we get it from time to time, of course we do. We're put in a position where we have to defend not only us as leaders, but all leaders. It's very easy for people to look at the media, to look at what's happening around the world and say that all people in perceived positions of authority have some kind of corrupt bent. Well, I can guarantee anybody who's listening that we do not. We do have faith in our planning process. We look to our best and brightest to help us make the decisions, and then we look to our community to feed in to those decisions. And this is what this process will enable, the next step in this. Not everybody liked the design that was put forward in the last development application, but that's not what we're here for today. We'll get a chance to talk about that again, and we hope through this process, the developer and the community members who have experienced significant angst through this process have got another opportunity to meet and to address some of the issues that have been put forward.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Daking.
Thank you, Matt. Don't get emotional, they say, being a councillor and a public person, so I won't. But it is a shame we can't ask questions of the public as we get told that we are potentially corrupt. The one thing, if I could ask questions of the public, I'd ask, has the JAC group met with the Kais and worked through potential solutions and looked at offering them properties and whether it be financial compensations? That's a question that I'd ask, and I already know what the answer would be to that, and it would be yes, they have. But anyway, we've already made this decision. I hate wasting my time and the time of others and money, and that was the decision made a couple of years ago, 10-1. I feel that the decision now is going to be an even stronger decision, which would be unanimous. We need to give confidence to the Launceston public that when we make strong decisions at 10-1 or 8-0, that we can get a result. The community is speaking to us. Over the last few weeks, the only 3 people that I have heard of negatives have obviously been in this room today, and I see that from a community point of view. There's a strong message that this development, or this SAP, I should say, meets the criteria that we're looking to vote on from a planning point of view. I look forward to one day seeing this hotel be built, and I fully support it.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor McKenzie, will you take... Oh, you can't. You were moving it. Councillor Cox, will you take the chair while I just say a few words? Since we haven't got the deputy here. Or Councillor Finlay. Oh. Thank you. I just want to stand to offer my support and to say that, look, I agree with everything that's been said around this table, and I thank you for those words as well, for the support for the project. I see this as extremely important for our city as we continue to head forward out of COVID. Some say to me, well, why would you want to build a hotel in this climate? Well, that's not from my concern. My concern is the fact that, like Councillor Spencer has said, the last 2 months in particular, so many times I've been confronted with people at conferences or at different games, at events. They found it extremely hard to get accommodation. So that's in a time when we are struggling. What's it going to be like when the international borders one day and in two years or whatever it will happen? But I do want to say that this will be a 5-star hotel. We don't have a lot of those in our city, and I think that's important for our city as well. And I too want to add the words of Councillor McKenzie and Dawkins and all of us around the table, the disappointment that we can't just deal with the facts, that we need to be talking about what the issues are and not to start to make assumptions, not to start to throw assertions out there that no foundations whatsoever. More than happy for anybody to come and check my bank accounts and have a look at any large payments or payments that may or may not have been made, because I can assure you they haven't. But I really do feel that's very disappointing. It's something that's extremely sad that you have to resort to that. It means you have a weak argument in my case, and I think that is extremely sad. To our staff, accusations were made against the staff of this council, and I will defend them as well, our staff. They are above board. I don't always agree with the decisions they make, and they are very fearless. They are very willing to give their review, and that's what they're there for. So to you, CEO, to all the staff that are here, General Manager and the planning staff, thank you for that, and please don't take on board some of these very false and wild accusations, which they are, which should never be made without being able to somehow answer back, and that's not the session that we have. But my answer to those questions is, let's deal with the facts, let's prove the facts, and let's continue to make sure, yes, it is emotional. I fully understand it's emotional for people. But when I get emotional, it means I need to be still considered in what I say and how I say it. And that's what we all want to do. And I'm sure the decision that we make today will be a considered one, based on the facts and based on what is best for this great city that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. To you, Councillor Mackenzie, to close.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the contribution for those that spoke. I won't say too much more other than to advise that if we do vote in favour of this today, the process doesn't end, which is why I asked the question at the beginning. There is still an opportunity for all of the public to make their comments in regards to the special area plan over the next 28 days. Then it will come back before this council again for us to consider the representations that we receive. And at that point in time, we'll make a determination to send it on to the Planning Commission for them to be the final arbiter, which then may give the opportunity for others to speak about things. Hopefully, as the Mayor said, they will contain their thoughts to the facts rather than to the personal implications that were made. So I look forward to the vote.
Thank you. I'll put the vote to the vote now. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. We now no longer sit as a planning authority. So we now move on to Mayor's announcements. There's just a few that I will highlight from the past fortnight. And it's really great to go on the 13th of May, along the Deputy Mayor was there as well, to officiate at Launceston competition, speech and drama evening. And boy, I wish more people were there to listen to and see our young people from the ages of 10 and up, their speech and drama, how they answer, speak is absolutely fantastic, and I wish more people would see that and encourage. We have some amazing young talent coming through in this city, and we need to dwell on that, the positivity and way they can bring forward a subject, and some of the subjects were challenging, but the way they were prepared to bring that forward was very pleasing. But also to acknowledge the Launceston competitions, what an absolutely amazing job they've done for well over 100 years to really continue to add so young people in our city can be adjudicated on by a very experienced adjudicator and then be learn and continue to grow. So it was really fantastic. Also, it was great to attend the Vietnam Veterans' 40th anniversary dinner. And what a great night it was, and a great fun together with the Vietnam veterans, and I congratulate them for the work they continue to do in our community as well. Then on the Sunday the 16th, the NTFA Aboriginal round at the Rochalee Footy Club. Fantastic, really moving when you see the work that goes into, even at sporting levels, to recognise our Aboriginal people. So congratulations to the NTFA, Rochalee Footy Club, and how they highlight that on that day. And again, I wish more people would be involved and see, but the crowd there was fairly good, really good probably, thank you. And then there's a few civic functions we had, which was fantastic to be having civic functions again, Mr CEO, so it was really great to see a few of those. And then on Wednesday night, last night, to officiate at the opening night of Australian Musical Theatre Festival. And if you haven't got tickets for tomorrow night or Friday night or Saturday, or tonight as well, sorry, then tomorrow night, Saturday, Sunday, get involved, get online. We saw a snippet, that's the word I think we use, of some of the talent that's in this city at the moment. It was absolutely fantastic, incredible really, it was amazing. It was a great night, and Deputy Mayor's not here today, and I want to stress that because he doesn't miss many meetings, but he is involved as the stage manager for that show tonight and very busy over there getting ready for that today. But congratulate him on the effort that he's put into, along with the committee, to make that a reality, and they were very thankful. And I'll pass that on from the committee to CEO and to the councillors for the support that we give them through our sponsorship. So it's really appreciated, and it helps them to put on what's going to be a great few days in our beautiful city. And there's so many of our young people, again, the ones that I probably spoke about before, have an opportunity to rub shoulders and to sit in workshops with some of the best in the business from around our country. And what a great opportunity to have an Australian musical theatre festival right here in the best city in Tasmania, Australia, Launceston. And that is really fantastic. That's it from me. Thank you. Councillor reports. Councillor Dawkins.
Thank you, Mayor. Along with your good self, Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Harris, we attended the Tasman's 40th birthday anniversary. What a fantastic celebration that was. A big shout out to Jenny Kinder and Annie Gregg, who couldn't be there. But I can't believe it's been 40 years. where's the time gone? It's quite incredible to me that it could possibly have been that long. And for something so unique, for a city like Launceston to have a professional contemporary dance company, it's almost beyond our expectations that it could have not only started but survived for 40 years. During that time, the organisation it's spread its wings, and it's been, it's been represented in New York, it's toured through Southeast Asia, it's been represented in every capital city in the country. And over the years, as I guess our idea of culture and how we consider ourselves has changed, it's come back. And over the last 10 years especially, rather than having that outward focus, it started to look inward at how we use culture to be able to understand our sense of place and our sense of islandness. It's reached out to the Aboriginal community. The Welcome to Country that Cynthia Mansell led was really something special, and I think it really was great credit to City of Launceston, the event on Tuesday night, and may there be many, many more. I'd also like to pay tribute to Deputy Mayor Gibson, even though he's not here today, for the incredible effort he did for a 24th anniversary 45th anniversary Design Tasmania. We're struggling. I don't think there's anybody that doesn't know that a lot of arts organisations have found it really difficult to come out of many things. We've had problems with the building. Obviously, COVID has really impacted on visitation to the centre. We've had a number of factors, losing our benefactor last year. So raising $21,000 on a Friday night was just the most fantastic thing, and we could not have done it without Councillor Gibson. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
Thanks. Not wishing to sort of overstep the conversation, but I've been to most of these things this week. I'm sort of having to watch my waistline again now. Civic functions are back on again. But I've been to something every night this week, and there have been some fantastic. The RFDS, I think, was a fantastic celebration of 60 years of their service in and around Tasmania, and the activities they do, not just in the Royal Flying part of it. They're now actually very much involved in rural and primary health in and around the state. I think they do the northeast and the east coast together with the Huon Valley. So their wings have really spread over the years, and it was great to listen to the stories about how it came about, as was on the 40th anniversary of TasDance. And TasDance, what I really like, and we'll have discussions with them coming forward, they put forward a proposal on how they're going to go forward as an organisation and how they may well fit into the landscape of Launceston from now for the next 40 years. It's something that I think we as a council need to consider and how it fits within our cultural program. And last night with the Mayor, I went along to, and the Deputy Mayor, the Australian Musical Theatre launch on the Princess Theatre stage, and it was amazing. I would have to say I was astounded from the Mayor forward in relation to the speeches that were made by the speakers were there. This is truly an Australian iconic festival. You've got John X out of Hobart saying it's better up here than it is down there. You've got Tyrone Power, who's been everywhere in the world, who's the Festival EA executive producer, who came down here and said, this is wonderful. He came to it 2 years ago and fell in love with it and said, I've got to be involved in some way. And he's now the festival director, as he is, I think, next year as well. And he brings a wealth of world experience to what it is. A boy from Newcastle who was shy, who wasn't shy last night on stage and spoke beautifully. And our second most recent MLC in Joe Palmer, Governor, spoke and absolutely brought the house down to finish with. So it was a fantastic thing. So if you get an opportunity to go and see the Australian Musical Theatre stuff this week, please do yourself a favour.
The Honourable Joe Palmer.
The Honourable Joe Palmer, my apologies.
Any other councillor reports? No, we'll move on. Questions on notice are there for councillors from the previous meeting? Oh, there's none. No questions on notice, but questions without notice? Any questions from councillors? No, we'll move on to 13.1, Northern Youth Coordinating Committee meeting. Someone happy to move that? Moved, Councillor Mackenzie. Seconded, Councillor Harris. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Mackenzie? That's the one, 13.1.
Yes, I did want to speak to. I think that it's terrific when you read through some of the things that they've been doing and looking at receiving bipartisan support for 3 requests prior to the state election. I just wouldn't mind if the officer could actually tell us what those 3 requests were.
I'll need to take that on notice.
Yeah, because I think that would be useful for us to know, because it would be then useful to see how that's followed up in regards to the state government in regards to what they've actually asked on, and I guess supporting that youth group to come through and say, well, this is what the outcomes of those representations were. But I know they do a fantastic job, the youth group, having been involved with it for a few years. I'm disappointed to see that we've lost an officer, which is sad, but hopefully there'll be somebody new in the role very shortly to take that work on, because I know the young people that come along to that group certainly value the camaraderie of what they do, and I think the passion for what they do. And I think if anyone was here last year to see them do the council chamber exercise, I thought it was fantastic last year. So I look forward to hearing more great news from them.
Thank you. Councillor Harris. Any other councillor wish to speak to it? Can I put the motion? Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. Move on to 14.1, Council Workshop Report. Move Councillor Harris. Is there a seconder? Councillor McKenzie, thank you. Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
The report speaks to itself pretty well. The only interesting one I think that the listening audience will be interested in is that we had a report back from the Trevellyn traffic calming and what the various options were for calming the cars on Trevellyn and Gorge Road. So that's a work in progress. With that, self-explanatory otherwise.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie, wish to speak to it? Any other councillor wish to speak to it? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. Move on to the Cultural Advisory Committee report. Moved Councillor Dawkins. Is there a seconder? Councillor McKenzie. Councillor Dawkins, is the motion as is with names, or do we need to nominate today? Seeks nominations for committee members?
Yes, with names, please.
Yes, those names will be?
Councillor Gibson and myself.
Gibson and Dawkins, thank you. So that's the motion. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I think it's timely. There are going to be a number of organisations around the city and in the region who are going to need to understand how they can fit within our cultural strategy. The inception of which was many years ago now. It's been a long time since Robin Archer sat down and turned a mind to how we could encompass what it is that culture in Launceston and this environment represents. There's been a lot of discussion over the years about how we clearly define it. I think for most people, they understand that arts are at the core of culture, artistic production, but it's obviously more than that. It's more than music, it's more than dance, it's more than fine arts. It's everything that we do, the outpouring of our ability in this community. And I know that there's been contention over the years about what part sport plays in this. For many of us, we believe that sport's taken care of in so many other ways. It doesn't take many looks at a newspaper or listen to a news report to understand that sport is fostered by many, many leaders in the community. So over the years, we've understood that while sport is a part of culture, it clearly is, it can't be the dominant part of culture. We need to always come back to what it is that we really perceive as the importance here. So the terms of reference are laid out here. The objectives and the membership, two councillors will be on this advisory committee, one to act as the chair and one to be there and to fill in as required. I think Councillor Gibson, I don't think I need to explain why he should be on this committee. I mean, he lives and breathes the arts. I don't think there's anybody else in the community, apart from a handful of his closest colleagues, who could attest to having such a deep interest and abiding love of all things artistic. I'm on Design TAS board, and I've also was inaugural chair of Rand Arts, which are doing extremely well. So I think I can bring a slightly different level of expertise around how contemporary culture might fit and be promoted, because of course these are often unique to this area. It's really, really important that we pinpoint what it is that we do that nobody else does. And I think as a part of our cultural strategy, we've been able to do that. So I hope this gains support today. I think it's fairly uncontentious. And thank you for your support.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I rise to support the motion as well, inclusive of the people who are going to sit on that committee in its inaugural sitting. I guess, this has been a long time coming, and I guess the key to me, and I think the big challenge that's going to go ahead, is to how people see culture when they really sit there and think about it. Because I see here one of the things is to advocate strongly for the arts. My issue is that we did define culture as being a much broader spectrum, and it included sport as well as that, and I know Councillor Dawkins has drawn on that in the conversation that she just led. So I think we've got to be careful, because I think what I would like to see is not that they're over there and we're over there. We need to be able to walk hand in hand through this process. And I appreciate there's probably been more emphasis on things in the sporting world where people can get funded and so forth like that. But I think if we want to be truly cultural, we need to make sure somehow we build the bridge to make those things walk together in so many different ways. There might be at different stages, things will be competing for different levels of resources, and they may go in their own separate ways to compete for those. But I think it's important that we as an organisation, with our definition of culture, when you go back to the cultural strategy in there, it certainly enhances more than just the arts. It's actually a much broader conversation about what we're about. So I would like to make certain that this committee is clearly engaged in the breadth of what culture means to this city and to this organisation. So I'm happy to support that, but I think as we go through we might need to nuance a little bit to get it right. That'll do.
General Manager wishes to comment.
Thanks, Mayor, for your indulgence. Just to the point that Councillor Mackenzie has made is a good one, and does reflect what was identified in the strategy. So I just wanted to highlight the first up point in the selection criteria for the committee members, and we were quite mindful to include quite a broad range of examples of the type of experience that we're looking for in that. So just to read that out: professional experience working in a field such as cultural development, placemaking, cultural tourism, cultural events, recreation and leisure, arts and culture, marketing and promotions, community arts or community engagement.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Dawkins wish to close? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. 17.1, planetarium fees and charges. Move Councillor Mackenzie, seconded Councillor Harris. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Mackenzie?
Yeah, just to say it's a great idea.
Councillor Harris?
It is, and the great idea for those sitting at home wondering what that might be is that this is a dual planetarium show ticket price. Adults $12, where a single show cost you adults $8. So it's two tickets for the price of 1.5 in the same day. And that's because there's two different shows shown in the planetarium on the particular days. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Do you wish to close, Councillor Mackenzie? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. 18.1, Launceston Flood Authority Quarterly Report. Someone happy to move? Councillor Harris moved, seconded. Councillor Dakin, thank you. Councillor Harris, wish to speak to it?
Only briefly to say that the quarterly reports identify what they've been up to as far as activities with the, the flood levy, including the work on the Kings Wharf levy gate and also the Invermay levy, where they have widened the opening to allow access to Riverbend Park. And I think other than that, it's a great report.
Thank you. Councillor Dakin, anything to add? Any other councillor wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. We then move on to 18.2, the petition response. Have somebody to move that? Councillor Mackenzie moved. Is there a seconder? Councillor Harris, thank you. Councillor Mackenzie, you wish to speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor. We've had a little bit of correspondence in relation to this over the last few weeks. We met on site as a council group a few weeks ago to sort of investigate, and I think at the time that we had that investigation, it was advised to us that the development application that was lodged at the time included that road as part of the development. So as a consequence of that, it's been there, albeit there are some that attest that it shouldn't have been there. The reality of it is there. I think the common sense way is it actually exists at the moment to do the road treatment, and there's some concerns about what we're doing, but I think we're doing it in accordance with the safety standards that are promulgated. So I think I'll leave that up to the experts. This is the best way to actually make sure that's a safe egress through that space. And I think it's important to note that there is a lot of activity going on in that area at the moment. There are trades. I think the day we were there were probably about 30 or 40 work vehicles that were parked along that road with development. So there's a lot of activity going on, which is meaning there's a lot of traffic movements that are going through that space. So to me, I think the common sense approach is to, we've got it, let's look at it, put in the traffic mitigation processes that have been put in the recommendation, and then review it once all the properties have been developed there, and see what level of traffic's going through there, and if there needs to be further review of that, then I think that's the appropriate time to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Any other councillor wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. Move on to 19.1, lease of the Mowbray Cricket Club. Move Councillor McKenzie, seconded Councillor Harris. Do you wish to speak to Councillor McKenzie?
Yeah, I do, and noting that we do need an absolute majority, which I think means 7 of us to vote in favour of this today. So hopefully we'll get that with the numbers that we have in the room today. I feel sure that we will. Again, the Mowbray Cricket Club, I think, as set out in the report, have been with us for a long, long time. I think since 1955. Trevor Cowley, great Tasmanian cricketer of many years ago, was one of the establishers of it, and they've variously been in and around the NTCA, the York Park precinct for a long, long period of time, and moved over various iterations of that journey to where they are today. I first looked at it, I thought, why are we charging them rent on the basis that most of our rents are $1 rents? Basically, and they make contributions for volumetric charges on the water and various other things. And then I found out why, that we can't actually give them a volumetric charge, so it's the best estimate in relation to what those charges would be. So the rent is effectively there to cover what we consider the reasonable costs that they would have otherwise been able to do under the $1 rental, because we can't easily determine that. So I think it's a great club that's been around for a long time, not to mention that Ricky Ponting was once a player with them from there, and a number of Tasmanian and Australian cricketers. I think Greg Campbell might have played there at one stage as well. So a cricket club of great repute, and hopefully they have many more cricket seasons ahead of them, and I know they've got their diversity, having women's cricket as well as part of their thing, so something that we should be supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Harris. Any other councillor wish to speak? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand, and that is all councillors present. That is carried. 19.2, UNESCO. Someone happy to move? Councillor McKenzie, seconded Councillor Dawkins. That was right, was it? Yep. Councillor Dawkins? Yep. Do you wish to speak, Councillor McKenzie?
Look, I will. This has been a conversation that's been ongoing for quite a number of months, probably even years, probably a couple of years actually, that this conversation's been going on, it's been evolving. And to me, you know, the biggest thing that comes out of this is talks about food security as a fairly significant part of the city of gastronomy. It's all about innovation. It's all about promoting Launceston as a city, or the greater Launceston area as a city that produces fine food. And I guess if we become one of the UNESCO creative cities of gastronomy, we have certain obligations on things that we need to do. But on the flip side of that, it promotes us worldwide as to a place that has excellence in regards to the things that it actually does. So I think that whilst we're being asked to commit $25,000 to this for the next, I think, 2 or 3 years, which certainly in the next budget and plan, I think it's something that's worthwhile, and I think it sort of just adds to that ongoing fabric of what Launceston is all about and what we should be looking to aspire to in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, it is just for the 1 year, as I think you realise. So, Councillor Dawkins.
Thank you. Yes, look, I really like the way this leadership group has gone about collaboration, that the stakeholders they've reached out to, they've made sure there's real depth into the community and breadth. So it's not just us supporting this bid, which quite concerned me to start with. I started as a baby foodie back in the early 80s in the industry, and all our teachers were English, and all our food was French. You know, there was only one way to do fine dining, and that was it. And over the years, it's a bit like, I guess, the way we think about our culture. We've turned from being so outward looking and we've started looking inward at what it is that makes us unique. And in some ways, this is the culmination of that. You know, there's been so many steps along the way, and I think Joseph Cromie has clearly been a part of that with his vision for planting Pinot Noir and Chardonnay in this part of the country. But so many people have had an elemental difference, and Harvest Market is at the core of it. You know, we didn't believe it could happen, we didn't believe it would succeed, and it has. So yes, I think this is a natural progression of us being able to really stake a claim on what it is to be Northern Tasmanian and what the properties are that make that unique. So I think $25,000 is a fairly small price to pay.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor McKenzie wish to close? I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. Go on to 20.1, Launceston Flood Authority appointment. Someone happy to move? Councillor McKenzie, second to Councillor Harris. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor McKenzie?
Oh, just to say that Mr Priest has done a fine job in the role up until now, so I'm very comfortable in him being reappointed.
Thank you. Councillor Harris? Any other councillor wish to speak? I will put the motion. Those in favour, please raise your hand. And that is all councillors present. That is carried. We now close the meeting. Thank you very much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Touchscreen laptop. What do you think about that?